Welcome to Seth's Daily Podcast. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. I want to thank you guys for subscribing. Everybody go follow the Nighthawk Radio Facebook page. Appreciate everybody that has followed and has liked it, including our guest. Appreciate
Sir.
everybody, man, that's gave us support on that. Go subscribe to Seth's Daily Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, uh, TikTok even now. That's Seth the Soil Guy. That's my name on there. I've tried to change it to Seth's Daily Podcast, but they won't let me. But I'm definitely glad to have you on, man. We're blessed enough to have TikTok superstar, Supernatural Sleuth, man. How you doing tonight?
Doing well, sir. Thank you for having me back.
Appreciate you being on, man. I know our schedules are both crazy.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here, brother.
Definitely, man. Definitely glad to have you on for sure. And something that people have seen you talk about is the feral people of the Smoky Mountains.
Yep. That was a hot subject. That's one thing I had never really leaned or learned a whole lot about until people just started submitting stories to me, honestly. Then I kind of started researching it and I found this whole new world of, at first I just kind of thought to myself, this is just baloney, honestly. But the more I looked into it and the more I reached out and people reached out to me, I began to, begin to wonder. A lot of people, including like park rangers, have allegedly had encounters. So who knows?
I believe in it, definitely, man. I believe just like Neanderthals and stuff, there may be people that have not that might be some of your Bigfoot sightings, man, is actually feral people. I mean,
Yeah.
how tall are they saying these feral people are?
Um, you know, most I would say most of the stories I've heard encounters is like there's only been a few where they have people have felt threatened, um, but most of them just describe seeing like a very dirty type person, unkept. A lot of times they look malnourished and tattered clothing, like an old worn out something just thrown together, like a dress or a shirt. And in some cases, no clothes at all. But I don't know, dude. It's if you think about the national park system, what better place would there be? Protected land. So
Especially in the Smoky Mountains, man. And
yeah,
what I was meaning is, I think they could be connected to Neanderthals. Maybe they're
yeah,
Neanderthals.
that's
That's just
very
a
possible.
theory.
No, that's very possible. And I've heard some people have theories that they, subterranean, they live underground, which I've also heard that theory with Bigfoot. And I don't know. It's really interesting. I That's something I truly never give any thought to, but the more I look into it, the more I begin to wonder. Usually where there's smoke, there's fire. That's not to say every case is legitimate, but somewhere within in the mix, there's truth also.
It's very possible, man.
Definitely,
Well, I mean,
definitely.
you have these tribes and different countries and stuff. They're still living off the land, so we may still have
Definitely.
that in America.
Right. And I even doing during my research, I discovered which I wouldn't say they were feral people, but and this has been probably several decades ago, but there was a family in Virginia, not too far from where we're from, maybe an hour or so. The guy lost his job. He couldn't afford a home. And they went to the mountains, found like a big cave. And, he done a little bit of work around it and made very uh, primitive rooms, if you will, I guess, in a cave. But, he and his family lived there for years. So, and that's, who's to say what else is out there?
Definitely, man. And they're like known to have their own language and stuff, like whistling to each other and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that also. I guess not being in society and picking up the English or any language for that matter, they develop their own. So, it's possible. Stranger things have happened. I'll say that.
I think there's more possibility of feral people being real than like a dog man or
Right. Yeah, I agree. And Dogman is a really kind of hot topic in the Smoky Mountains. Um, there's a theory. I've honestly not looked into this much, but I've had a lot of people reach out that believe there is a government or some kind of elite, like scientific laboratory under the ground, like in Cades Cove in that area, and that's where a lot of these creatures, Dogman specifically, come from. There's some kind of hybrid between a human and a wolf or another animal, and I don't know, but it's interesting to when you think about some of the stuff that goes on, like missing cases in the Smoky Mountains. Like I think the most famous one is Dennis Martin, a 6-year-old boy who went missing, and I think it was 1969. Was just feet. You know, they could see the little boy. They were playing hide and go seek in the Cades Cove area. Family members all around, and he vanished like that. When they noticed he was gone, they immediately went looking for him. Not a trace, nothing. And this is where a lot of people, I think, kind of get conspiracy theories. The Green Berets, special forces, Army special forces, even helped search. There was never a trace of this little boy found anywhere. So, things like that just kind of make you question what's going on.
And some people think that was connected to the fair people.
Well, depends on who you talk to, I guess. There's a feral people, there's Bigfoot theory, Dogman theory, and it's very possible maybe he fell into a cave or was abducted. What I have read and looked into with the case, that doesn't seem likely with the extensive search that went on, but something happened to that kid. I personally think something's or someone took him, but a person, according to the experts, could not have moved that fast packing a small child, even though he was small, through the dense forest, a pretty good ways from civilization. So it makes you, wonder what else might have took him, you know. But the feral people definitely have been mentioned in that theory. So, that might make a little more sense if you think about it.
It definitely does, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and that's the same. A lot of people make the same argument like for Bigfoot and Dogman. I've even heard Mothman stories out of the Smoky Mountains.
Which one? That's interesting, man. There's Mothman in Smoky Mountains.
Well, I had never heard that until people started, and I don't consider myself an expert in anything, but I've worked in law enforcement for 25 years. I consider myself to be a pretty good judgment of character of people. I can tell when people's being pretty honest, or I have heard stories from people who I believe wholeheartedly had these experiences. And one of them was from a lady who seen this creature when she was a young girl. Her whole family seen it in the Wares Valley community, which is close to Cates Cove. It wasn't as big as the Mothman out of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. She said this thing was only maybe 3 feet tall, but described it almost identical to the Mothman. But I've heard other stories also.
Yeah, you've heard people saying like fairies and stuff too, man. So
I have heard that, yes. And that kind of goes into, the whole core message of my social media, TikTok, Instagram. I believe many, and I know we've discussed this before, but, I believe a lot of these entities are demonic. And I think they can take the form of a Mothman, a fairy, maybe a Bigfoot, whatever. Um, so, I think you have to really, kind of decide or think about, is this a legitimate cryptid? Is it some kind of flesh and blood being, or is it more spiritual? And I think that's the big question. At least it is for me.
definitely, man. Some people think the government created them,
I have heard that also. Yeah, definitely. There's so much. If we truly knew everything that the government and not just our government, but governments in every country were doing, we probably couldn't sleep at night, honestly. So, I mean, there's definitely things they do. And you hear stories now of things the CIA did, 50 years ago, and think, you would never think that they would do that stuff. So, if they were doing these things 50 years ago, like remote viewing, that's kind of a big thing now. The CIA has used remote viewers to, in one alleged incident to find the Ark, the Ark of the Covenant. So, there's actually documents supporting this. I don't know what they found, if they found anything. They say they did, but who knows.
That's some interesting stuff for sure, man.
It is.
You've actually got stories from people seeing fairies.
I have heard a few. I'm beginning to get a lot of followers out of Europe, Ireland, in that area. And I think fairies are a lot more common over there. And I have had people tell me stories about fairies. I think I've heard some here in the States and the US, but not as many as I have in that region. But that definitely. Well, I'll take that back. Honestly, not that long, maybe a few weeks ago, I had a lady reach out in an email and told me about fairies that almost followed her. Like she's seen them all day, almost every day. Your first thought is, this person's crazy. But at the same time, when I tell stories I've experienced, people think I'm crazy. So, I don't want to just judge someone based on a wild story because, if I tell half the stories of things that's happened to me, I know people say the same thing. So, who knows?
Definitely very interesting, though.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, man. You probably get tons of really cool stories every day, don't you?
Yeah, I get a lot. Especially if it's one of those times like when I have a video that goes viral and your account is going, you get I've had several videos where I have reached as high as almost 30,000 followers off of one video. And when you get that much traffic on your account that fast, people just sending you stories, messages, and it's hard to keep up with them, honestly, because some people send great messages on Instagram or TikTok and Instagram, emails, and dude, just with the daily struggles of life, of work and family, it's hard to keep up with them. That's I'll read one maybe, and with all intention of responding, and being at work, and then forget about it for 2 weeks later. Then I'll respond, and but it's really opened my eyes to a lot. Hearing people's, and not just hearing, but people share stories, pictures, videos, and sometimes, and I'll be honest with them, they'll send me a video or a picture, and I don't see it. They'll say, "Look at this," I called a ghost or whatever it may be, and I don't see anything. That don't mean there's nothing there, but I don't see it. In order for me to share it, I at least have to see it myself and say, hey, well, I see this too. I can't say 110% this is what it is, but there's something there. But a lot of them are like mind blowing too, to me anyway. And so, you can't just discount people's stories or experiences because you haven't experienced it yourself.
Definitely, man. Have you got any mermaid stories or no?
Um, Someone reached out to me there just a few weeks or a month or so ago. I think when there was some kind of thing it was kind of viral on social media about TikTok, or was there something about like rich people eating mermaids? You remember that? Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
There was something on social media a few weeks ago where, again, I don't know if it's legit or not, but there was this story or stories of like the super elite, rich, wealthy people, like actually ate these things, like like you would a fish or whatever. And it was sometime during that whole phase that someone reached out. I think was something mermaid related, but honestly, I've not really heard a lot about that.
Yeah, that's something I've always been interested in.
It's interesting. As vast as the Smoky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, you know, compared to the ocean, that's nothing. And we've not explored even the smallest fraction of our ocean. So it's kind of scary if you think about it. I've been out. I'm not sure if you've been like on a cruise. I've been on a few cruises, dude. When you get out in that open water and you see nothing, and know there's nothing for hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles, like who knows what's out there? And I think that's really big now. A lot of people with all these whistleblowers like UAPs, UFOs, these fighter pilots and pilots, commercial airline pilots see these craft go in and out of the water. Used to, or at least for myself, you think of aliens or UFOs, like outer space, but now people are saying we have video, we have seen them in and out of the water, which makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah, there's a theory in that. Some people are thinking that they're going down to the water to either hide or recharge their spacecraft.
Right. Yeah. And, we know so little about the ocean and what's in the ocean. We honestly don't know. It's beyond our capabilities to know, I think. We can't explore it all. We can't research it all, at least not right now. So, it's anything's possible.
Have you got any cool UFO stories here recently?
I occasionally get the UFO. One of the, and it's actually been aggravating me for a while now. There was a lady probably a couple months ago. She messaged me on TikTok first, and she told me her story. Then she said, I'm gonna send you some videos and pictures." But she said it was almost kind of like the fairy. She said these orbs, and she lived in somewhere in New Jersey, like where all this UAP stuff and orbs kind of blew up, a while back. But she said there are these orbs that are around my house every day. She said like they drive my dogs crazy, and I'll be honest, I didn't believe it at first. I'm like, "Yeah, okay, if you got it, send it to me. It's pretty cool." Then she did. She sent me a video. I think she was looking out her window, like up in the trees around her house, and you could see, yeah, what I see a lot of times, lens flare. People see lens flares in their video and pictures, and they think it's an orb or an alien or a ghost. This was a legit orb. It was. I mean, I can't prove it wasn't, altered or whatever, but I believe wholeheartedly it was a legit video, and I can't find it. I don't know what I done with that video. I get so many, they all just kind of run together, and but it was really neat. And once I seen that video, she sent me a few and maybe some still pictures. She said, "I see these things every day." She said, "People think I'm crazy, but she said I see these at my home every day." So, you know, that one, and like in my opinion, like the drones and the UAPs they were seeing over the East Coast, the New England area, I think that was just drones, be it government or whatever. But I really think it's the orbs because I've seen a lot of videos. I've kind of researched it. Um, those things are, I don't know what they are, but they're not anything. They defy physics as we know it, the way they move, from, they can move a half mile in the blink of an eye. That's not technology we're supposed to have, or at least we don't know about it. So I don't know what it is.
Definitely, man. And what's your TikTok so people can go follow you at?
It is the Supernatural Sleuth. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and X. I believe I have, and Facebook. But TikTok and Instagram is really the ones I do a lot with right now. I've told you, YouTube is something I plan to be. I'm getting closer a little bit every week of getting to where I want to be to go for a full launch. But I encourage everyone if they have YouTube to follow me on any and all accounts they have. TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is.
Definitely, man. I'll already follow you.
Yeah, 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 and I appreciate it. And I
Oh
love what you're
no,
doing with your
definitely, man.
podcast, man. You're doing some killer stuff, and we need more people out here, spreading the word like you are, and I think it's awesome.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate what you do, spreading the word of Jesus, man.
Well, yeah, that's if I don't share anything else, that's the one thing I want to hope that I hope I get across. If nothing else hits, that's the most important thing.
Definitely, man. And you're telling the truth about ghosts, man.
I believe wholeheartedly I am, and that's something I wrestled with for quite a while because growing up, or if you watch ghost shows on TV, these experts, say, well, these are former patients who are trapped in this asylum. They're stuck between worlds. But in my mind, I'm like, well, the Bible don't teach us that. The Bible says we don't hang around here. And so I wrestled with that for a while until I just started, and then I became a Christian and read the Bible and knew the truth. I'm like, that's not people. That's not human spirits. That's demonic, 100%. And, and I can also back that up with my own experiences in 25 years of doing it. It's demonic. Every one of them are demonic.
Definitely.
It's never a human spirit. Never. Not saying that angels and God don't intervene in our lives, but they don't haunt buildings, and it ain't your, lost relative or friend that you see. It's not. It may look like them, but it's not.
Yeah, they're just mimicking them, for sure, man. Well, I
Definitely.
definitely appreciate you being on, man. I want to thank the Supernatural Sleuth for being on. Everybody have a good night and God bless.
Thank you.